Hello and welcome on in, everyone. Today we've got a tier list for you, stacking up all the classes in ESO, Magicka and Stamina, and seeing how they come out against each other. Now this tier list of course is focused around PvP, but that being said, if you're not a PvP player, there's still tons of information just for the different class overviews here, as well as some useful info if you want to get into PvP and you're not really sure which class to pick. Now, of course, this tier list is my subjective opinion about balance in the game. People's opinions are going to differ, so not everybody is going to agree with the rankings that I have here. That being said, I did my best to try to give you guys an accurate representation of how the classes are performing in PvP. And last but certainly not least, we have got gameplay footage of every single class provided by me and different members of the community. Everybody that we feature in today's video, you can find links to their channels down in the description below. So be sure to check out these awesome content creators that we have in the video today. And without further ado, let's get into that tier list. So starting us off, the first class we have is Magicka Dragonknight. Now, Magicka Dragonknight has got a ton of damage over time pressure. On top of it, it has a ton of different skills that not only attack its opponent, but heal you as you attack your opponent as well. Magicka Dragonknight also has access to a fantastic crowd control kit, being able to spam immobilize an undodgeable and unblockable stun, as well as that dragon leap for the distance close and the undodgeable stun on it too. Having access to major mending helps amplify all the sources of healing that Magicka Dragonknight can get, making it a very durable upfront fighter if you choose to build it that way. Magicka Dragonknight's biggest weakness, however, is its lack of speed. It has great crowd control and the ability to slow opponents down, but if something can get away from a Mag DK, they can really struggle to keep up with it. And of course, the biggest weakness of a lack of speed, you can't get away from a lot of opponents if you find yourself in a fight that you can't win. So Magicka Dragonknight, being the slowest class, really loses points there. Now, of course, you can build around different weaknesses in PvP to help alleviate any spot that your build might be struggling with, but for the reasons that I've gone over here, I've given Magicka Dragonknight a B- in the tier list. While it is coming in at the bottom of the pack, the B- rating means that Magicka Dragonknight is not too far behind the best classes for PvP, and I think that's just a testament to how good the class balance is between the classes in the game at the moment. Next up on the list, we have Magicka Nightblade. Now, Magicka Nightblade has some of the best burst out of all the different Magicka classes that you can pick, and of course, it has access to stealth, which is a huge win if you want to do some ganks. Magicka Nightblade innately has really great regen and sustain too, so it's quite easy to put together the build that you want, and you've got quite a bit of freedom. You don't need to go for a stealth Nightblade either. You can build very bulky too, or you can go for that glass stealth style, which is pretty sweet. The big drawback of Magicka Nightblade is its weakness to snares and immobilize. Magicka Nightblade, unlike Stamina Nightblade, can find itself getting locked down a lot easier because it doesn't have as much stamina sustain to work with. Now, if you have access to the Psijic skill line, you can really help alleviate some of Mag Nightblade's movement issues, but that leads me to the next issue with Magblade, and that is the reliance on a Resto staff. If you're not using a restoration staff on a Magblade, you find it very hard to have good healing power on it, and that's simply because Magblade doesn't have a lot of healing options versus some of the other Magicka class options. Magblade's high cloak uptime definitely gives it a unique playstyle, but it's not enough to bring it up higher than a B in the tier rating for me. With the changes to healing power this year being weaker in PvP, and Magblade not having access to as many heals as some of its Magicka counterparts, and finally Stamina Nightblade being the more mobile option, yeah, Magblade kind of gets a little shafted, I think, this patch. It's by no means bad, but it will not shine as much as some of your other options. And next up, we have a fairly uncommon archetype that you see in PvP, a Magicka Necromancer. Now, Magicka Necromancer has access to some pretty insane healing power. If it's standing in its corpse field and has all its heals over time going, Magicka Necromancer can pump out some serious self-healing and some good group healing as well. This high healing power plus access to a lot of different damage reduction abilities makes Necro innately quite tanky in PvP. And offensively, Necro has access to Blast Bones, a very hard-hitting range delayed burst skill, an incredibly powerful AoE ultimate that applies major vulnerability, and they get access to a synergy field that they can self-synergize, which is very unique to the Magicka Necromancer. But its biggest drawback, just like the Magicka dragonknight, is that it's slow. It is one of, if not the slowest classes in the game, and that can be a big drawback for a few different reasons, but it really just comes down to the fact that you can't escape a fight where you're in trouble and you know you can't win. So Magicka Necromancer scores a solid B+ on the tier list. It is by no means bad, but the lack of speed is definitely its weakest part. All around, though, a powerful force on the battlefield offensive and defensively. Next up on the list, we have Magicka Warden. The first thing that stands out about Magicka Warden is access to almost all of the buffs in the game. This is great for just general buildcraft because you have a lot of different options with how you want to build because you've got access to pretty much everything you need, but the big win for me is access to a lot of different weapon options. Usually when you pick your weapon option, it's because you need a certain buff from your weapon, and Wardens, well, don't have to worry about that. Having access to Major Mending makes Magicka Warden one of the best healers in the game as well for group and for self-healing. And they also have access to one of the best hit point based skills in the game, being the best hit point based heal as well as an AoE stun. And on top of it, Magicka Warden has got some pretty fine sustain, really utilizing its Warden passives well for the Magicka variant, and of course having access to skills that can provide more sustain on top of it. A Magicka Warden can also put out a ton of damage. Deep Fissure, a delayed burst ability, is fantastic, not only because it deals a ton of damage on top of your other attacks, and it's an AoE, but it also debuffs your opponent's armor. With the changes to armor this patch, that armor debuff is incredibly good for PvP, so it gives Magicka Warden quite a bit of offensive firepower. Magicka Warden scores a solid B+ for being all around solid. I don't think it really excels in any one area as much as the other classes do, but all in all, Magicka Warden has no real outlying weakness and does a great job against a variety of things in PvP. Now let's take a look at Stamina Sorcerer. Stam Sorc is the fastest class in the game. They have Minor Expedition, they have Streak, and they're in the Stamina variant, and they can easily get access to Major Expedition as well. This means that if a Stam Sorc builds for it, nothing will be able to keep up with it. Now, all that speed is amazing because it allows you to really control a fight in PvP where another class might struggle because they'll get overwhelmed and pulled into a bad position. Stamina Sorcerer also has a bit of a unique healing kit for a stamina build. Having access to Surge means that you can stay very aggressive on a Stam Sorc while actively healing yourself, and on top of it, they have Dark Deal, which means that you can turn your Magicka into excess stamina or vice versa if you want to build that way. This gives Stamina Sorcerer an amazing ability to control its resource and an option to build a lot less sustain than some of the other classes because you can rely on Dark Deal and your speed to help keep yourself alive. And finally, Stamina Sorcerer has access to 2 different stamina abilities in its kit, both of them being delayed burst abilities. This means that Stamina Sorc can deal an insane amount of damage in a very short period of time if you hit someone with a good combo. But due to the nature of their class skills being delayed burst abilities, you're still forced to rely pretty heavily on your weapon skills in order to have a good offensive rotation. With the changes to Stam Sorc over this past year, I feel like they are a solid A in PvP. Being as fast as they are and access to as much damage as they have now, Stam Sorc is looking pretty hot in 2021. Now, taking a look at Magicka Templar, it is doing pretty good this year. Magicka Templar can put out a ton of AoE damage. It has a ton of different AoE skills, and on top of it, Magicka Templar also does a great job healing itself while it's attacking too. Magicka Templar's healing kit all around is really strong. Probably the strongest part about Magplar is that healing kit. They have the best purge in the game, they have the best burst heal in the game, and they have insane amounts of healing over time for solo and for group play as well. I think the biggest downside to Magicka Templar is the lack of mobility. It's definitely not as slow as some of the other Magicka classes, but it's also not as fast. If you are using that gap closer, however, you can really alleviate some of the issues that Magicka Templar has with speed offensively, but when it comes down to it, that defensive getaway speed is kind of the one where Magicka Templar will lose. This year, I rank Magicka Templar as an A on the tier list. It is definitely all around strong and boasting one of the best healing kits in the game. Personally, I think the Magicka Templar melee kit is stronger than its ranged kit, and that kind of pushes people towards playing a melee Magicka Templar, and that can have its drawbacks for sure versus fighting your opponent at a distance. Next up, we have got my favorite class, the Stamina Templar. Now, Stamina Templar is in a pretty good spot this year, all around like the Magplar being fairly strong and not really having any real weaknesses. It has one of the strongest spammable attacks in the game from jabs, and then of course it has access to a delayed burst skill in Power of the Light. Power of the Light recently took quite a bit of a nerf damage-wise. However, the change to the minor armor debuff being a lot stronger than it used to be makes Power of the Light still a very good skill for Stamplar, and Stamina Templar also gets access to 6% additional weapon damage, and they get a little bit of a critical damage bonus, making Stamina Templar a great option for a burst build as well. Defensively, just like Magplar, Stamina Templar has access to the best Purge in the game. That's a huge deal in PvP because Purge can hard counter a ton of different attacks, as well as provide you with a nice amount of healing when you're standing in that circle. So Stamina Templar gets a solid A on that tier list. It doesn't have any real glaring weaknesses, just like the Magplar. It is faster than the Magplar, so I think in that regard, it's just a little bit better. And of course, Templar has some pretty good hit point based skill options too, which not a lot of the classes have an option to go for during this patch. Now, moving on to Stamina Warden. Stamina Warden is unique in the fact that it has its own stamina healing kit versus the other classes. So Stamina Warden makes the most diverse stamina healer in the game. Now, this is awesome for every single Warden build, not just healing builds, because you have more access to different abilities and you're not forced to run certain weapon sets or certain skills that you don't want to. Just like the Magicka Warden, Stamina Warden also has access to almost all of the buffs in the game, meaning that you can also use whatever weapon combinations you want on the Stamina Warden. Offensively, Stamina Warden has access to Subterranean Assault. Unlike Deep Fissure, this does not give you the armor debuff anymore, so they definitely lost a few points here, but by no means is Subterranean Assault a bad skill. The delayed burst means that you're still going to be able to deal a huge amount of damage with it on top of another skill that you cast. Stamina Warden gets a solid A on the tier list because it does everything I think that the Magicka Warden can do. However, it is a stamina build, so it's a little bit faster. And the Warden Burst Kit mixed with Dawnbreaker being a better ultimate on stamina builds, I do think that Stamina Warden comes out on top. Now, next up, we have got Stamina Nightblade. Stamina Nightblade has one of the most powerful stamina offensive kits in the game, and they've got a ton of debuffs in that kit to go with it, on top of all of the skills doing quite a lot of damage compared to some of the other classes' counterparts. Stamblade also has access to Cloak, meaning that invisibility allows you to be the notorious Stamina Nightblade ganker. Stamina Nightblade also has the highest base critical rate in the game, and some of the best regen that you can get on a stamina build. Now, you don't always have to go for a stealth Stamina Nightblade. You have the option to go for a bulkier kind of brawler spec too, and Stamina Nightblade does that really well. Its defensive kit, however, makes it one of, if not the best stamina option for solo PvP, because you can get away from so many opponents using the sleight of hand that Nightblade has to offer. Cloak is an amazing mind-teasing skill, and then on top of it, we have Shade to teleport around as well. Stamina Nightblade can do a really good job surviving where no other build with that amount of damage would be able to. Stamina Nightblade's biggest weakness, in my opinion, if you're playing that stealthy style, is an opponent that can put out a lot of AoE pressure and undodgeable and unblockable stuns. It does a better job dealing with that than the Magicka Nightblade does, though, so for that reason, Stamina Nightblade definitely earns the A+ on the tier list. I think this is probably the best option if you want to play solo PvP, however, because when you're by yourself, Cloak and Shade are pretty much better than any other skills. And now, next up, we have got Magicka Sorcerer. Magicka Sorcerer is by far, I think, the strongest Magicka class for PvP, and that's simply because it has the one thing that all the other Magicka classes struggle with. It's fast. Well, it's not just that. Magicka Sorcerer also has the most powerful shield stack in the game, an incredibly strong, unblockable, delayed burst ability in Curse, and then it has an incredibly powerful ranged attack in Crystal Frags. This means that if you're fighting a Magicka Sorcerer, it doesn't matter how close or far away they are from you, they can get on top of you, and you are in trouble if your health is low. This mix of damage, durability, and speed makes Magicka Sorcerer incredibly good at fighting a lot of opponents, because it can really just kite out the number of people that you're fighting and control the fight with its speed alone. Mix in the stun or projectile absorbed from Streak, And then on top of it, Dark Deal to help return resource once you've broken distance from the group. Magicka Sorcerer is just all around really awesome for PvP. Oh yeah, and they get pets, which no other class does. So for all of those reasons, I think that Magicka Sorcerer definitely deserves an A+ on the tier list. It has historically been the best Magicka class for PvP, and I don't think that's about to change anytime soon, simply because Sorc gets everything it needs to be very successful in a PvP environment. Now next, we have got Stamina Necromancer. Now this is a very good class option for 2021. Stamina Necromancer defensively has got one of the best stamina healing kits in the game. It's got a lot of free healing via the tethers, so you don't have to pay anything to get a strong heal over time, and then it's got just flat damage reduction in its abilities as well. Stamina Necromancer also has access to Blighted Blastbones, which is not only a very powerful ranged delayed burst skill, but on top of it, it applies Major Defile to your target. And of course, just like Mag Necro, they get a Stamina Morph for the Colossus ultimate, and they can apply Major Vulnerability to their target as well. Stamina Necromancer also has a very powerful health costing Purge, which is particularly nice for a stamina build as they tend to stack more health recovery than others. Stamina Necromancer definitely deserves an A+ on the tier list this year. I think it just has everything: the Defile, the powerful delayed burst, so much healing power and damage reduction, and it's a stamina class, so it alleviates the lack of speed through that. Now, in this footage here, I am using a lot of stealth. That's something I built onto my build. It's not something Stamina Necromancer natively comes by. And finally, for our best class of 2021, at least in my opinion, I've got Stamina Dragonknight. Defensively, Stamina Dragonknight gets access to Major Mending. This paired with the 10% additional weapon damage that they get and just a little bit of innate healing power increase in their class passives, Stamina Dragonknight has the strongest base stamina heals out of any class in the game. Stamina Dragonknight can also boast an impressive amount of sustain from Battle Roar, as well as mixing in those poison resource return passives that it has. In fact, I think Stamina Dragonknight does a much better job sustaining itself than its Magicka counterpart, simply because its skills are nowhere near as expensive on average as the Magicka skills are. But I think what makes Stamina Dragonknight the most formidable thing this patch is its offensive kit. Stamina Dragonknight is the only stamina class that got to keep Major Breach after these recent patches, and the access to Major Breach is a huge deal this patch because, like I said earlier, it has been buffed. Now we mix these powerful offensive bonuses with a very strong damage over time kit, and then put some powerful burst skills on top. Yeah, Stamina Dragonknight has an incredibly deadly offensive kit that pretty much nothing can counter against. I mean, they can put out so many dots if they're running the right sets and poisons that you actually can't even out-purge them. So Stamina Dragonknight offensively, one of, if not the deadliest forces this year. And I think the icing on the cake for Stamina Dragonknight is that Dragon Leap. Having a ranged ultimate that not only is undodgeable, but has the highest tooltip damage out of any ultimate in the game. Yeah, Stamina Dragonknight is an incredibly punishing offensive force, and it has the defense and the sustain to keep that offense going. So I think this year Stamina Dragonknight earns that S tier rating. It has everything that you'd want defensively and then even more offensively, winning huge points again from being a stamina build to help give it better mobility and having access to snare immunity as well. Yeah, Stamina Dragonknight has just got everything that it needs to be very, very good this year. And of course, guys, I have to put a special honorable mention in there for proc sets because they are just so darn strong in PvP right now. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed the tier list. Let me know what you guys think down below, whether you agree or disagree. And of course, a massive thank you and a massive shout out to everybody who was featured in today's video. We've got links down to their channels below, so be sure to check out these fine ESO creators. If you guys are new here, I create regular ESO content, so be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and stick around for more. If you guys want to send in clips for the top 5, or if you guys want to send in a build to be featured on the channel, you can send that to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. Check out my website, KristoferESO.com, for written guides to all of my builds and a hub for all of my ESO content. You can check me out on Twitch for that live gameplay, and give me a follow on Twitter if you guys want to keep up to date with what's going on. You can always check out our sponsor, What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers. They give you better ping to your favorite games, and they are free to try for the first month. So no harm, no foul. Link down below in the description for you guys. And then last but certainly not least, a huge thank you and a massive shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon. Without you guys, I couldn't do this job. I know I say it every time, but I really do appreciate the support that you guys give me, and I appreciate everybody just for tuning in and watching today. As always, I hope that you guys enjoyed. I'll see you all next time, and have a great night, everybody.